Ever felt the presence of something unexplainable? Stay tuned to uncover chilling tales from others who have. The stories of the Asylum on the Hill were something of a local legend. They spoke of the strange happenings, of lights flickering in the night, voices that didn't belong, and shadows that moved when they shouldn't. My friends and I always dismissed it as town gossip, but something about the way the older folks spoke of it, the way their voices lowered and their eyes darted, made me wonder if there was more to it. The first time I went there, it was just me. I wasn't looking for trouble, just answers. It was a chilly night, the kind where the wind seemed to cut straight through you. I made my way up the overgrown path, my flashlight slicing through the dense darkness. The building was an imposing sight, with its broken windows and ivy-covered walls. Inside, the air was heavy, thick with the smell of damp and decay. The peeling wallpaper clung to the walls like a ghost of the past. As I wandered through the empty corridors, my flashlight caught movement in the corner of my eye, a figure hunched over, shuffling down the hallway. My heart raced, but I told myself it was my imagination. I followed cautiously, the sound of my footsteps muted by the oppressive silence. The figure turned into a room. I hesitated before stepping inside. It was an old rec room, scattered with remnants of games and furniture. The figure sat in the corner facing the wall. It was a woman, or what appeared to be one, her hair tangled and her hospital gown hanging loosely from her frail frame. She rocked back and forth, humming softly. I froze, every nerve screaming at me to leave. Then she began to laugh, softly at first, but it grew louder and more erratic. Her head snapped around to face me, but there were no eyes, just empty, dark sockets. I ran. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping for air and vowing never to return. A week later, I found myself back there. This time I wasn't alone. My friends Sarah and James had convinced me to go back after I told them what I'd seen. "It's just your mind playing tricks on you," James said. Sarah was less sure, but curious enough to join. The three of us ventured in during the day, thinking daylight would make it less terrifying. It didn't. The second encounter happened in the asylum's old medical ward. The sunlight barely penetrated the grime-covered windows, casting everything in a murky gloom. As we explored, we heard the sound of metal clanging. It was rhythmic, like the sound of a gurney being wheeled down a hallway. We froze, exchanging nervous glances. The sound grew louder until, to our horror, an old hospital gurney rolled into view, moving on its own. There was no one pushing it, but it moved with purpose. We followed it, though every step felt like a mistake. It stopped abruptly in the middle of a room. The old straps and restraints were still intact, stained and frayed. Then came the voices, soft murmurs like a doctor and nurse discussing a patient. "It's not responding to treatment." "Increase the dosage," one voice said. "It won't help," came the reply, laced with frustration. "Nothing will." The voices faded, and the gurney's wheels screeched as it spun sharply toward us. That was enough. We bolted, not stopping until we were back in the sunlight. Sarah swore she'd felt hands on her back pushing her toward the gurney. None of us spoke on the way home. The third and final encounter happened a month later. This time, a group of us, 5 in total, decided to go back, determined to uncover the truth. We ventured in at dusk, the light quickly fading. The atmosphere felt heavier than before, as though the building itself was alive and aware of our presence. We were in what we assumed was the dining hall when we heard it. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor. The tables, still scattered with old trays and cutlery, looked as though they'd been recently disturbed. Then came the voices. Louder this time. Laughter, sobbing and muttering filled the room, echoing off the walls. A chair near us tipped over, then another. We all froze, and then in unison the chairs began to move. They scraped and shuffled, forming a circle around us. It was chaos. Some of us screamed, others stood frozen in terror. Then came the figures, appearing one by one around the room. They looked like staff and patients, some in white coats, others in hospital gowns. They moved slowly, their heads jerking unnaturally as though they were puppets on strings. One figure, a man in a doctor's coat, stepped forward. "Dinner time," he said, his voice low and distorted. "But you don't belong." That's when the lights started flickering and the figures closed in. One of them, a patient clutching a stuffed animal, reached out and whispered, "Help me escape," before they find you too. In the chaos, we managed to break free, running blindly through the asylum until we found the exit. When we reached the safety of the hill's base, we looked back. Lights flickered in the windows, and shadows moved inside, as if the asylum was alive with its own grim routine. We never went back. Sometimes I still hear the voices in my dreams, feel the cold grip of that patient's hand on my arm. Whatever haunts that place, it's not bound by the walls of the asylum. It lingers, waiting for anyone foolish enough to enter its domain.
If this chilling tale gave you goosebumps, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more stories like this. Thank you for tuning in to Ghostly Echoes. Until next time.